Reading with your kids.
Hola! Come on in. Great to see you. You know, you always have a great smile. It's so wonderful to see. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast, coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so excited that you're part of our beautiful Reading with Your Kids family. You understand just how valuable it is spending time reading with your kids every day. We have two wonderful guests for you today. We're going to find out a little bit about the Queen Vernita Visitor Series, and we're also going to find out a little bit about Rett Syndrome from our guests, Heather Clark and Dr. Dawn Menge. We do want to begin by letting you know that this episode of the podcast is brought to you by The Adventures of Johnny Pocket Band, Battle of the Bands by Linda Phelps. Do you know a teen or a tween who struggles with stress and anxiety? Well, let's be honest. If you know more than like 2 or 3 tweens or teens, then you know someone who is struggling with stress and anxiety. So let me suggest a really great book for you and for the members of your family and for that person who's struggling to read. It's called The Adventures of Johnny Pocket Band by Linda Phelps. Johnny and his brother Drummer Boy are excited to compete in the Battle of the Bands. They have 2 months to get the band prepared, but everybody is like way nervous. And not just like nervous, like way nervous. Now, Johnny has promised himself that he is going to conquer his anxiety this year and to start having fun. And with the help of his friends, he just might be able to do that. This story captures the emotions, the fears, and the excitement of the preteen years. It's a difficult time for all, but this story opens up a window of understanding as each kid shares their thoughts about fitting in, making friends, and that new unsettling feeling of being attracted to girls. This is a fantastic read for all families. The Adventures of Johnny Pocket Band, Battle of the Bands, is available on Amazon or by visiting Linda's website, johnnypocket.net. It's The Adventures of Johnny Pocket Band, Battle of the Bands by Linda Phelps. This episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Dr. Connie Tate and her wonderful children's books. You want to check them all out. The title, Scooter Boy, Roll On, and Sylvester's Catastrophic Tale. Dr. Tate was nice enough to write us a rhyme for the show this summer. If I were really talented, I'd create a song with it. It's summertime and it's time to read. Curl up with a book, there's no better deed. Reading is magical, just open a book. You can travel the world from your own cozy nook. All right, I'm not going to do that to you anymore. So to recover from that, you want to check out Dr. Tate's books and meet the great characters that are found in the books. Dr. Tate has this really wonderful knack of being able to introduce you to some fantastic characters. There's Ren, the star of Roll On, and Ren was inspired by Dr. Tate's granddaughter. Cal and Scooter Boy, everybody loves Cal, and everybody is just going to go crazy, rooting for Sylvester's safe return in Sylvester's Catastrophic Tale. Now, all of Dr. Tate's books are available on Amazon or by going to Lucky Jenny Publishing, Inc. And don't forget to check out Dr. Tate's website, rollonreading.com. That's rollonreading.com. You go there and you can download all sorts of great free fun activities. The books of Dr. Connie Tate, Scooter Boy, Roll On, and Sylvester's Catastrophic Tale. And we also want to let you know that this episode of the podcast is also sponsored by The Crabapple Tree by Tom O'Toole. The Crabapple Tree is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. Tom O'Toole wrote The Crabapple Tree to teach kids how to accept and love the differences in all of us, especially the differences we see in ourselves. The Crabapple Tree is about bravery and courage and standing up for yourself. It's about crushed hopes that are restored. It's about the athletic girl who is told, you're not pretty enough. Or the sensitive boy who is told, dude, real men don't cry. And it's about the author who is a gay boy growing up in a whirlwind of pious legalism, convinced that something was terribly wrong with him. It's a story of hope deferred and a renewed belief in the fulfillment of longing. It's the story that elevates the marginalized and calls forth the ostracized. It's a story about the greatest voice speaking into the hopeless heart saying, I see you. I made you. I love you. I want you. The Crabapple Tree, a Reading with the Kids certified great read by Tom O'Toole. It's available on Amazon. Joining us right now from Oregon and the high desert of Southern California. Not one person in two different places. We have two wonderful guests. The first guest we're going to introduce is a friend of ours. She is the author of the Queen Vernita Series. Please welcome back to this show, Dawn Menge. Dawn, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you. And thank you for having me back.
Yes, I'm really excited to have you back. We're also really excited to speak to your friend and the mom of someone who inspired one of the characters in your book. Her name is Heather Clark. Heather, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, Dawn, why don't you remind us about the Queen Vernita series, and in particular tell us about the character that was inspired by Heather's daughter, Ireland.
Well, the Queen Vernita series, it basically has 9 books. The first one, the Queen invites 12 friends to her castle to visit, a new friend for each month. And each month they do 7 different activities. And then she begins to branch out and visit her subjects in different regions. So she's visited Alaska and New Orleans, Baja, Mexico. She's written a book with an astronomer, Sir Heathy Bean. And this is the 9th in the series, and Queen Vernita conquers volcanic islands. And in this book, we have two friends that have disabilities. One has autism, and another one has Rett Syndrome. And Heather used to work with our students here in California, and her daughter Ireland has Rett Syndrome. And so she was the character for this month. And so we discussed Ireland, and she's making lays for her friends in her class. And then we learned 7 facts about Rett syndrome. And there's many more facts. We've just put 7 in the book. So I thought it would be wonderful if you got to talk to Heather herself and learn all about Ireland and what their life is like.
I agree. Now, I actually have a few people very close to me who have Rett syndrome, and I was just telling Heather a little bit about my friend Jennifer, who was also the flower girl in my wedding and was the person who introduced me to my beautiful wife. But the knowledge that we have about Rett syndrome, it's changed a whole lot since I was working with Jennifer many, many years ago. At that time, we believed it was, basically, you fill in what I don't know, Heather. My understanding was it was a degenerative neurological disorder. The kids are typically born typical and develop typically for the first 16, 18 months. And then start
6 to 18 months.
6 to 18 months, okay, and then start experiencing delays. And when I was with Jennifer, the thought was that this was a disorder, one of the very rare disorders that only affected girls, and that's changed too.
Correct.
Yeah. So why don't you fill us in?
There's a handful of boys now.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about Rett syndrome, about how it affects Ireland, and how it affects your family. And also, one of the neat things about my friendship with Jennifer was that it was truly a friendship despite the challenges that she had and despite the things that she couldn't do. One of the things that she absolutely could do was be a great friend.
Well, that's good. Yeah, with Ireland, I've gone to different Rett clinics that have actually seen numerous doctors, neurologists, GIs, and they've actually wanted to do further testing on her genetically because she's not fitting certain criteria. And I said, well, I know it's in her DNA, so I don't think you guys are going to be able to take that out and change her. But I think a lot has to do with what their surroundings are. Ireland doesn't speak, but let me tell you, she can tell you things with her eyes.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. And with Ireland, too, I'm very animated with her to where if she is sad, we're all going to know there's something wrong. Because she just does not, she's very passive when it comes to certain emotions, But, with her, she's never walked. She's spoke maybe twice, and it's been the word mom. And she said the last time, I think she was 7 years old. So, a lot of the girls can walk, so there's really no model for us to really go on because they are all so different.
It is, and it's a fascinating. Fascinating isn't quite the word, but it is such. We know so much more than we did, but there's still so much more to know about these girls. And
definitely.
As you were saying, the communication is incredibly strong, whereas a lot of kids with autism seem to have trouble communicating or connecting with folks. My experience with kids with Rett syndrome is they're right there with you. They make very, very strong connections and eye contact, and that was one of the things that really made it easy for Jennifer and Amy to connect with the typical kids that we would be working with.
Right. And see, I currently work with kindergarten to 5th grade autistic kids, and I'm working with certain communication devices with them as well. Now, with these devices, though, I'm not going to be able to work them with Ireland. She doesn't use her hands or fingers like other children do. And so with her, it's basically just going off her, body language if she gives me any, But otherwise, she's a very charming girl.
Yeah.
Very happy.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I think that Dawn and I had talked about this when Dawn was first on the show. One of the reasons I was really excited to have you and Dawn come back on the show is just to reinforce the message that we talked about a lot here on the show, but was something I was very passionate about, is, that it's so important for everyone, not only kids, but especially kids, to understand that kids with challenges, whether it's autism, whether it's Rett syndrome, whether it's dyslexia, whether it's ADHD, that they can be kids and what they are kids, and that they can be great friends.
Correct. Oh yeah, they can. They're brilliant little human beings, and we just got to open up that door.
Now, as you're saying, our knowledge of Rett syndrome has really grown. Now there are, as you said, there's a handful of boys who have been diagnosed with Rett syndrome. In fact, one of them is here in Boston, and the mom works with my wife. Talk about coincidences.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is when you have a child is born and they develop typically for, as you said, 6 to 18 months, and then suddenly they start regressing or start having some real difficulties.
But that's the really odd thing too, because with all the neuros that I've spoke to and they've gotten to know Ireland, she never really went through that regression state at 4 to 6 years old of what they say the normal regression is. She basically just stayed witty with her mind and, her visual, but there are so many of them that will go normal, typical range. They'll end up, 3, 4 years old, walking, even talking. Some still talk, even throughout their 20s. But that's why it's so different. But I also believe, though, too, with boys, they're calling it the duplication. Like the duplication gene. I don't think they're actually speaking of it being Rett, but it is equal to it.
Okay.
But boys can have very, very bad reactions.
Yeah. The child that we know here in Boston, the young guy, he has lots and lots of challenges, and it's very, very sad. But
Did you know that it affects that first X chromosome? And the females have 2, boys only have 1. I have a feeling that has a lot to do with it.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
As far as I know, it actually I know with Ireland, she's missing 45 amino acids that are in one of the leg chromosomes on the bottom part of the first X, if that makes any sense. The thing that actually I started realizing was how phenomenal and a miracle it is to have children anyways. Mm-hmm. But if everything doesn't match up at those precise seconds of that embryo being made, something's wrong. Mm-hmm. And it's just phenomenal on what they're finding now.
It is.
And I actually love the research, but my gosh, there's so much of it, I'm overwhelmed.
I'm sure it is. And that's one of the things when you become a parent of a child with Rett syndrome or any type of serious developmental issue, you have to become an expert in that field.
Right. Yeah. Oh, I do. And I'm pretty much her voice.
Mm-hmm. And it is, it's so important for parents to advocate for their kids, especially when they can't speak for themselves.
Oh, most definitely. Because if I didn't speak up for her, she wouldn't have half the things she's got now.
Yeah.
And it is just me, myself with her. Because the marriage didn't last. I've got 2 other kids. And Megan just turned 24 today. Oh. And now she has 2 sons of her own. And then my son also has 3 boys of his own. So I'm almost thinking there could be a reason why they're not having any girls, because it is genetic.
Interesting.
They could both carry it,
Mm-hmm.
But my son's done, thank God. And then my daughter still wants to go on to have 1 more, but I think she'll have all 3 boys as well.
Wow. Fascinating.
But you never know.
Yeah, you don't ever know. But what was that? And you're saying that your marriage ended, and that's very sad. But it's also not unusual with families where there is a child with a severe special need.
Right. I think for me, when I was first told, I went through an emotional roller coaster. And then until I ended up finding my ground, I started talking to other parents, but I noticed a lot of them were more in denial than ever. Mm-hmm. And I just couldn't understand why some parents just didn't want to know the full spectrum, so that way it would make life somewhat easier for them. Mm-hmm. And that's why I just went full out. I said, no, I'm going to make sure this and this,
Well,
and I had to know, because I was the one taking care of her.
Yeah. Dawn, I wanted to ask you, what was the motivation for you to include characters with severe developmental disabilities in the Queen Vernita series?
Well, I've been teaching students with severe cognitive delays for over 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the children in my books who have the disabilities are former students of mine, or they're children of friends of mine. Mm-hmm. So they're personal.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And I'd like to educate people, children who's ever reading the book, about the different disabilities, and it just gives them 7 facts. So it just introduces the child to them and what they're going through, what the family's going through, that they can still explore and make lays for the classes, with help. But they're just children and they want to enjoy life. Mm-hmm. And so it's important that we just educate the world on everybody.
Exactly.
It's interesting. I like that you include 7 facts about Rett syndrome in the Queen Vernita book. And, one of the things I remember very, very clearly growing up, well, now it's almost 100 years ago, but When you would see somebody who was different, whether it was they were different ethnicity or different race or different ability levels, I remember being chastised by my parents. Don't look, don't stare, don't look at them, and don't ask questions. And kids are so curious, and they have natural questions. They see, in the case of my friend Jennifer, they saw a very, very, very pretty little girl who was able to walk, and your first reaction when you see her is, "Oh, hey, how are you?" And now this child is not answering you, and then you start noticing that her hands are just kind of clapping together, and her arms look very restrictive. And so, it is natural for a kid to have questions about that. And I'm happy that your book provides some answers, and I hope that giving those 7 facts it's a way for families to start talking about the fact that yes, people are different, and it's okay to get to know them and to know and because that's how we start friendships, is by getting to know people.
Right.
Well,
I had to end up doing that. I had to end up doing the fact of my kids, my other ones, they were just so adamant about people staring at Ireland. So I just said, well, if they don't come up and ask any questions, they're just in awe of her beauty.
Yes.
And that's all I could say.
What were you going to say?
Go ahead, Dawn. I'm sorry.
People don't know what to ask.
Sure.
Or if it's okay to ask, or present themselves, because sometimes people that have a disability, they don't want anyone to ask them questions, and some people do.
Right.
They're just like everybody else. Some people don't want to be approached, some people do. But I just wanted to tell a little story. When I was teaching in elementary school, we had our students go to the playground, and at the end of recess, the proctor was handing out the little rewards for good behavior. So she was handing them out to the students who had played with my students. You played with someone special. And my student, who was visually impaired, walked up and he said, well, I played with somebody special. Can I have one? So he didn't even know that he was the one that, because for him, he's just playing.
Right.
So we don't need to make an issue of it unless someone needs a little bit of help. You just move out of the way, or you help them up if they need it. But sometimes we make a bigger deal out of things than they need to be made of.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to live their lives, just like everybody else.
Absolutely. Now, Heather, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, you talk about you're doing this by yourself, raising a child with severe special need. We've had Dr. John DeGarmo on the show a number of times. He is a foster care expert. And he's quite aware that not every family in the world can be a foster family. But there are ways for everybody to help support kids in foster care and support families in their neighborhood or in their church community or in their school community who are foster parents and foster families. Are there ways for families to support a family with a child with special needs?
Oh, well, I'm sure there's definitely ways. Like recently, August 5th will be a year ago that I had to move away from Ohio. I lived in California, but then I moved to Ohio thinking it would be better there, and they would not put Ireland on the correct waiver. That made it to the point where it was nearly impossible for me to get anybody to watch her nurse-wise so I could go out and work myself. The schools were all on a freeze for any kind of hiring. So therefore I thought, oh my gosh, I'm living on her child support. That's going to end. And I had to move back in with my dad. So I'm trying to figure all these things out that Oregon still has to offer. But now my whole thing's going to be about finding help trying to get a van, some kind of a handicap accessible van, because I'm picking her up and carrying her. And my back is just all out of whack now. But I'm sure that there's so many different avenues of help out there, but a lot of people just don't know where to ask.
Is there a place that you know where you can suggest for folks to start asking?
Well, I know that there is, over here in Oregon, I started out with the community living. And with them, they will actually put you in a certain place of getting help, getting actually paid to care for your adult child. Because I know that there are only 5 states that do that when they don't have to be adults. But once they're adults, it all can change.
Yeah, that's
lots of things.
That's a big challenge for families with, we always think about, kids with special needs and supporting those families. But, once that child with a severe developmental disability like Rett syndrome turns 20 or 21, they don't have the school support anywhere, but they still need support.
Exactly. That's where I feel that they shouldn't be aged out like that. It's 21 for Ireland here for school, but it's 26 in Michigan.
Interesting.
Wow. And it's 24 in Ohio. Yeah. So that's why I was like, okay, cool, I'll stay in Ohio because I can go in between both states because I was 20 minutes away from Michigan. And it just still wouldn't work for Michigan because I didn't have the money to find my own place. And to live with family members that I hadn't seen in 38 years, that was kind of difficult.
Absolutely. It's difficult for me to spend time with some family members I see all the time.
Exactly.
Well, before we go, I want Dawn, I know that the Queen Vernita series, there's 9 great books in the series. Is there a place online where folks can find out more about the series?
I have a website, Dr. Dawn Menge, that can be found on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, various other online stores, or they can contact me on Facebook, Dawn Menge 1, and I can send them an author-signed copy.
And Heather, before we go, I have a couple of questions for you. First, Ireland is part of the Queen Vernita series. She inspired a character. Is she aware of that? And how does she feel about that?
She is aware of it. I ended up showing her the book, and I read the book to her, and she can touch the pictures. So I had her touch herself on the face, and then touch my face, and then the Queen too. And then I had her touch a flower in person to show her that that's what she was doing, is putting the leaves together.
Awesome. And also, I'm sure that for a lot of people, because even though our knowledge of Rett syndrome has grown and there are more kids being diagnosed with it, it still is one of those very rare disorders or syndromes. So this could be the first time that people have heard about Rett syndrome, and it's spelled R-E-T-T. Is there a website where folks can go to get some more information about Rett syndrome?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, they're definitely. I'm even part of a group online on the Facebook too, and but you just go to rettsyndrome.com, and it'll show up a whole different. It'll show up a lot of different things, and then you can also order the book, and it's probably about 2 inches big now. But when I found out about Ireland having it at that time, that book wasn't that big.
No, I know, because it was even smaller when I knew about it. Because we were working with Jennifer before Ireland was born. Well, we've had a pleasure today. We've been talking to the author of the Queen Vernita series, our friend, Dr. Dawn Menge, and also the mom of Ireland, Heather Clark, the mom of Ireland, and Ireland was the inspiration for one of the characters in the Queen Vernita series. I want to thank you both for being part of our show today.
Well, thank you.
Please be sure to join us for the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Our guest will be Claire Hallinan. She's going to tell us about her beautiful book, My Breath Loves Me. It really is a great book. Some great techniques that kids can use to to control their emotions. Adults can use them too. You heard me mention early on in the show that Tom O'Toole's book, The Crabapple Tree, is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read. What we've done is we've established a program where we have a team of evaluators. They're kids, teachers, and parents. If they believe that your book is worthy of 4 or 5 out of 5 stars, it becomes a certified great read. And with that status comes a number of tools that you can use to help promote your great children's book, to help your book stand out amongst the crowd of children's books that are published every single month. It really is a valuable resource for authors. You can find out more about it by going to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so very wonderful and helped us to learn a little bit more about Rett Syndrome and helped us to understand that folks with challenges can be a great friend. Heather Clark, Dr. Dawn Menge, thank you so much for being on the show. Check out Dr. Dawn's Queen Vernita Visitor Series. We also want to thank our sponsors, the aforementioned Tom O'Toole. Check out his Reading with Your Kids certified great read, The Crabapple Tree. Also want to thank Linda Phelps. Her book, Johnny Pocket Band, Battle of the Bands, is a fantastic resource for any family who knows somebody who is struggling with anxiety. And, of course, we want to thank our friend, Dr. Connie Tate. Dr. Tate, I apologize for trying to sing your poem early on. I promise it, well, I'm not going to promise I'm not going to do it again, but I'll try not to do it again. I also want to thank my producer, Fatima Khan. Be sure to check out Fatima's blog about every episode of the show at readingwithyourkids.com. I also want to thank my beautiful wife for all of the support that she gives us. I want to thank my friend Jennifer for introducing me to my beautiful wife. And I also want to thank you. Thank you so much for making the world a better place by reading books like the Queen Vernita Visitor Series with your kids, helping them develop empathy for others, helping them develop an understanding of others and of themselves. And when you're doing that, you're helping to make the world a better place. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.